Hey, what's going on, you guys? It's Matt from the Hair Transplant channel here, and in this video we are gonna be comparing a transplanted hairline, my hairline, to a non-transplanted hairline which has no signs of hair loss. I'm gonna base this comparison on three main criteria. The first criteria being the overall hairline positioning. Is it too high? Is it too low? Stuff like that. The second criteria is going to be the overall hairline density, or the hair density on the hairline. The third criteria is going to be what types of hair follicles were selected for the implantation and recreation of the frontal hairline. One little disclaimer: will every transplanted hairline look like mine? No. Can it look better, more natural? Yes. It will all depend on things like what type of hair transplant clinic will you choose, what kind of surgeon will be participating on your hair transplant, how much does he pay attention to details, okay? And this is basically what my channel is all about. Also, make sure you get my ebook, 5 Things I Wish I'd Known Before My Hair Transplant. And if you still have some questions after reading this ebook, make sure you apply for a consultation with me, a guy who has been researching hair transplant clinics continuously for the last 2 years, so I can share my experience, my guidance with you during our consultation call, to which you can sign up in the description below. But now let's come back to our comparison. Here you can see the transplanted hairline, my hairline on the left, and the natural hairline, which hasn't been transplanted, is on the right. The hairline on the left looks more matured. The hairline on the right looks like untouched. It's really like Norwood 0 on the baldness scale, if you will. I mean, you can also see here that the widow peaks in my case are much larger here than my friend's. He has almost like no widow peaks. It's really nicely framed hairline. Alright guys, now let's come to the second criteria, which is gonna be the overall hair density at the frontal hairline. You can see that the frontal hairline on the left has less density than the frontal hairline on the right. Why is that? Again, because the frontal hairline on the right is natural. There is no sign of hair loss whatsoever. We can assume that the hairline on the right has something like 100 hairs or even more per square centimeters. That's the density on the front, on the right. The density of the hairline on the left is maybe 50, 55 or something like that. So the density difference is obvious here. If you take a look further behind the hairline, you can see also some spots where you clearly can see the scalp underneath. You know, if you take a look here, you cannot see through this thick hair. The hair may not be that thick, but there is a lot of hair growing per square centimeter. Again, this is possible, it's doable, but it's very inefficient. It means a lot of graft wastage for you, because if you get the hair transplant in a crazy density, well, you will most likely need another hair transplant as well, because once you notice, well, I start losing hair, you will most likely notice further baldness in the future, and then you may not have enough donor hair which can be provided for your next hair transplant, because as you know, your donor hair is limited. But what many people don't notice, and they get kind of like blindfolded by this great density after hair transplant that the clinic promises, they don't look deeper than that. They don't really take a look at the transitions between the transplanted and non-transplanted hair, as we can, for example, see here. Alright guys, now let's talk about the third criteria, which is one of the most important criterias when it comes to whether the transplanted hairline will look natural or not as natural. Here is the hair on my side, the very fine, thin hair on the side which hasn't been transplanted, it hasn't fallen off. And here you can see the transition from non-transplanted to transplanted hair, the hairline, okay? If you take a look, for example, here on the right, this is very natural hairline with no hair loss whatsoever. You can see the sides, very fine and thin hair as well, and then it transitions into the hairline which also, no wonder, consists out of very thin and fine hair. And that's how it should actually look naturally. And even the best hair transplant surgeons in the world try to actually emulate something like you can see on the right. If the patient is bald and he wants to have a natural looking hairline, of course, they aiming for this type of transition, although it's very, very hard to recreate. Hair transplant surgeon takes a hair and he wants to implant it on the bald spot. He has to hold this hair in his forceps usually. If the hair is so thin, as we can see, the thin hair here on the hairline, this hair can be really easily transected. If he just pushes or presses his forceps too hard, he can easily cut this hair in half, and then it will be impossible to transplant this hair anymore because the hair is just destroyed. That's why many clinics like to use also thicker hair in the frontal hairline, because this thicker hair is it's stronger, it's more harsh. And even if you squeeze the hair, squeeze the hair more harsh in between the forks of the forceps, it's not gonna get transected that easily. So it really requires the highest precision in order to implant such thin hair on the frontal hairline one after another. At the beginning, as the hair is kind of coming out of the surface of the skin, there are small bulbs out of which like 2, 3 or even more hair is growing at once. Whereas at the frontal hairline on the right, we can only see one single hair which is growing out of its own bulb. Okay, so what should have been done better on the hairline on the left is that, especially this transition here, but also the whole frontal hairline, should have been recreated out of these types of hairs. See guys, as you can see on my sides, this is exactly the type of hair, the type of very fine hair, just the single hair follicles which are growing out of one root. There is no one root which could be like common for more follicles. Okay, there are no follicles sharing one hair root. That's how it should have looked like also in these areas here, guys. So this is what also every hair transplant surgeon is trying to recreate, to create the most natural looking transition, the most natural looking hairline possible. Another interesting angle where you can see how some of the hairs were implanted slightly in front of the hairline. Okay, they're not a part of the hairline, but there are maybe like half of a centimeter in front of the hairline. Why would they do this? Well, the hair transplant surgeon does it. You would laugh, but they did all these implants here slightly in front of the hairline. They actually do it to make the hairline look more natural. The intention is right. I don't argue with it. You can see even my friend, he has some hairs like this. You can see them, of course, here also growing slightly in front of the hairline. Well, this hair is much thinner as my hair, okay? Slightly in front of the hairline, as you can see it in my case. But again, in my case, we can see that these hairs are much thicker, and this make it look more obvious instead of less obvious. You have to really take a look at these details, guys, not just take a look at the overall density like, wow, it's amazing, look at these Instagram pictures, Matt. This is what I'm getting on Instagram. Look, this clinic, I paid just 1,000, I don't know, euro. Wow, look at this great density, I'm going there. Well, take a look at more details, and then you may change your mind if you take a look at more details. Alright guys, that was it for this video. I hope you liked it. If you have some questions, make sure you put them in the comments below. I read every single comment every week, sometimes even every day, so let me know. Now that you know what is important to be looking for in a hairline when you're doing your hair transplant research, now the only thing you need to do is to go out there, research a lots of clinics. And I'm sure there are also guys who wants to save their time, who don't have time to do all this research right now. Make sure you contact me on mattdominance.com, apply for my consultation. There's a link in the description below. I'm gonna help you find the best hair transplant clinic for your specific price range. I will help you get the best hair transplant result, guys. If you want something for free, there is also my ebook, 5 Things I Wish I'd Known Before My Hair Transplant, which also teaches some of the basic stuff on hair transplant, finding and researching the best hair transplant clinic. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for staying tuned until this very end of this very extensive video, and I'm looking forward to see you again in the next video. Take care. So like a basic pompadour, but I don't really style it up so much. Alright guys, so this is the number one that I really like.